Did you know there's 4 Jaws movies? Because up until this weekend, I did not. And every single one of them is insane. Let me tell you what. Hey, what's up? My name is John Bonjour. I am a comic book artist and film enthusiast. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. Jaws is one of the best movies ever made. The original Jaws, truly one of the greatest thrillers, one of the greatest monster movies, one of the greatest movies of all time. But we're not here to talk about Jaws. We're here to talk about Jaws 2, 3D, and The Revenge. I'm legitimately excited to talk about these movies because they are each, in their own special way, a snowflake of strangeness. This is an era of movie making where sequels are not a given, so each and every one feels like a new shot in the dark at a completely vague target that they have 100% not figured out. And I think it is shocking how much fun it is to watch each one of these and all of them together. So I do want to dive in. We're not really going to be talking about the original Jaws very much because you know what it is. You know what the original Jaws is. It's Steven Spielberg's masterpiece. I don't have time, honestly, in this video to discuss it, and I think it's more interesting to look at these not completely in a vacuum away from that, but separately from the original Jaws. Starting with Jaws 2, directed by, I'm gonna take a crack at it, Janos Svark. Janos Svark. I don't know how you pronounce it. I really don't. This came out in 1978, 3 years after the original Jaws in 1975, which is honestly kind of a long turnaround, all things considered. It makes a lot of sense, especially at the time. That maybe it's not a long turnaround for the 70s, for the 80s, but for now, if a movie is successful and you don't greenlight a sequel the next day, then you might as well not even be making movies. 3 years after the original Jaws, and the general reception of this has probably stood the test of time as being mostly true, which is that it is kind of a cash grab sequel. Jaws is a movie that is so uniquely individual in its story and in what it's trying to do, and I don't know that a sequel to Jaws is a good idea. So that's what makes these so interesting to me, is that it's like, why would you? You know, why would you make that? And Jaws 2 really wears that on his face. But that said, I will say my overall impression, just for me, having seen the original Jaws many times and now being willing to engage with this, not as the only other Jaws movie, but as one of many very strange sequels, Jaws 2 kind of slaps, and I feel really weird about that because it's like, there's a lot to dive into, but Jaws 2 is a legitimately fun summer blockbuster movie. It is not as good as Jaws. I just want to make that clear. But for what it's trying to do, for what its goal is, and for what it really goes for, I think this movie operates on a level that I find very, very fun. And not just that, it is also a very good-looking movie. This sits in Amity. It sits in these luscious, calm, peaceful, small-town, oceanside vibes that I think the original doesn't get a chance to do because, well, it's a better story and a lot more is sort of happening. But one of the things that I like about Jaws 2 is that it lives in Amity for a while. It spends time on the beach. It spends time in these really well shot, really beautifully lit, well, I don't know, maybe that's just the sun, but well shot, well captured small town beach photography, I think makes this movie way more fun to watch than it has any right to be, because I just kind of like living in the vibe of Jaws 2. It is half pensive, thoughtful drama and half big action monster movie popcorn flick. And I think for that, it actually operates in a really fun middle ground where I get to enjoy watching these beautiful people in these beautiful places. Yes, Roy Scheider, beautiful person, really just kind of vibing and not doing a whole ton, not having any autonomy, any agency in the story necessarily, in a way that is probably frustrating if you're expecting it to be a good movie. But I went into Jaws 2 expecting it to be bad, and so coming out of it, I was actually pretty stoked about it. Speaking of, Roy Scheider and Lorraine Gary, who play Martin Brody and Ellen Brody, I believe her name is Ellen Brody, are both kind of really bringing it. There is an element of cash grab sequel to bringing them on board that is true and granted. And in another world, this would be something that feels like they just didn't really care and just came in, got the paycheck and left. But at the end of the day, it still is Roy Scheider and Lorraine Gary, and they're kind of bringing it. The story does some really interesting things with their characters. Ellen Brody in this movie is making business moves. She's making transactions, being a girl boss. There's a resort being built in Amity that the movie is, I would say, relatively unwilling to engage with as a general concept. It's a thing that is set up as being an interesting concept, the idea of all these tourists coming in and what happens when there's a shark and all of these tourists, and they're trying to sell this idea of this beautiful resort on this beautiful area. The movie does not care about that. It engages with that on 0 levels past the first 20 minutes of the movie. But it's an interesting concept, and it's nice to see that she is doing something, not just being wife of main character. And Martin Brody is in his Dr. Loomis era. He's lost it. He's gone absolutely apeshit in this movie, and it's really fun to watch. There is something so funny about the way that he plays this character. It's a sad kind of funny, but there is something so funny about this guy who is so sure that everything is a shark literally all the time. He also gets fired in the film, which is a very interesting character moment because he has to deal with this thing that has given him identity for so long is gone now, and what does he do? Now, again, interesting concept. Is the movie willing to engage that on any level beyond what does he do? Beer? Not really. But Roy Scheider is really bringing it, and so he just goes fully feral. He goes crazy. The best scene in the movie, by far, and it's not even close, is when he's just standing at the top of the shark tower. Shark tower makes it sound cool. The watchtower, looking for sharks. He's just scanning the ocean. Everybody's at the beach. They're all like, is he well? Is he okay? And he is not. He is extremely not. And there's a bit where he thinks he sees a shark. He climbs down, basically falls down this tower, runs to the beach, is telling everybody to get out of the water, and he pulls out his revolver and he shoots the ocean. It's such a funny scene because he is fully just shooting a gun into the ocean, into the water. And a guy goes, "It's a school of fish, man. Like, it's just some fish." And then he looks out and it's clearly just some fish popping out of the ocean. And he's like, well, everybody get back in the water. It's also funny because we know that those bullets are laced with some sort of poison, which is like, I get it. I do understand what the movie is going for. I don't think this is supposed to be a funny moment for us, but it is, because he's trying to poison a shark by way of gun. And I just think there's something so funny about that. Like the original Jaws, and I hate to draw all these comparisons, but the original Jaws is built on the idea that it is just a fish. We can catch a fish. Like, this is doable. It's an animal. And then through the movie, we get the sense that it's more than that. We get this almost supernatural element of the shark that works really well because we don't see the shark for most of it. And then when we finally do, it's like, holy shit, that is a big shark. And it's exciting and engaging and really scary. Jaws 2 has the curse, I would say, of we already know it's a big shark. They already know it's a big shark. There is no mystery to the idea of this being a big shark, so it cannot live in that feeling for any longer than it absolutely has to, which means that you have to do something different, which means we're lacing bullets with poison so that we can shoot the shark to death, which is not how the shark dies. We'll get there. That said, the shark is kind of where the cracks start to show. The original didn't show the shark very much because it's hard to make an animatronic shark work in real life water, and this movie is also struggling with that, but in a different way because it just decides to show the shark for most of it, paired with some just regular footage of an actual shark. And for the most part, I would say it works, but seeing the animatronic shark for that amount of time ruins your suspension of disbelief just enough that it doesn't really work as a tense movie. It works as a fun monster movie, but as a pensive thriller, it just is, it's not happening. It does not have the juice of a scary, interesting, character-focused movie where we really care about what's going to happen. It does, however, have the juice of there is a big shark. All of these kids are stranded. What is going to happen? And that makes the last probably half of it pretty fun to watch because we know that there's a shark and they know that there's a shark and it's just dealing with the shark. And so it does get to be a monster movie for a lot of it. The other thing that kind of doesn't really work about this is the local politics is just sort of non-existent. I mentioned it before, but the idea of opening up a resort on this area where there was a huge shark attack, probably very, very famous for having this shark attack now, The idea of doing that and trying to thread that needle is very interesting and very fun. But the movie doesn't choose to do any of that. We still get the same Jaws mayor that we got from the first one, and his MO is exactly the same, which is really frustrating because it doesn't make any sense. The first makes a lot of sense. If you don't know that there's a shark in this town and you don't know that that might happen, you've built the town of Amity on peace, serenity, kind vibes. So I get in the original that the mayor of the town is not willing to accept that there's a shark because hopefully there isn't, and he could just will it out of existence. That doesn't work in the second one though, and they still try to do that same thing, but it doesn't work because the town has already had a massive shark attack. It's already happened, and also there's very, very clear the same evidence of a new shark attack. Why are we doing this? Like, the best PR move at this point would be for the mayor to just handle the shark attack super efficiently and very well. So it doesn't really make sense for him to be like, don't worry about it, everybody shut up, there's no shark, don't freaking worry about it, there's no shark. That doesn't make any sense because there's already been a shark, so just handle it like it's a shark, and maybe even go overkill and be like, see, we're keeping our people safe. That makes more sense. And honestly, that kind of highlights the issue with this movie. There is a line in this that says, I think we have another shark problem. Jaws is such a good movie. Jaws is such a fun movie because there is this feeling of novelty to giant shark, peaceful town, what are we gonna do? Jaws 2 is more shark, more town, what are we gonna do again? And it's just intrinsically less interesting. So I think while it is fun, and obviously, of course, you're missing the steady hand of direction from Steven Spielberg. Not that Jeannot doesn't do a solid job, but it's still not Steven Spielberg, and that is evident. It doesn't have the clarity of timing and tension and fun and while solid direction. So, while it's not Jaws, while it is not a great film, Jaws 2 is a lot better than it has any right to be. And they kill the shark by electrocuting it with an underwater power line, and that's fun as hell. It is also interesting to engage with the kids a little bit more, the Brody kids. We'll get to more of them later on in some of the other sequels, but we get to see them kind of develop B characters, and that's a lot of fun. Jaws 2 is very fun, but it is not good, and that is, and we'll get to this, the best thing I'm gonna have to say about a Jaws sequel. Which brings us to Jaws 3. You know, we come to the movies not just to feel things and get sad about stuff. Sometimes we come to the movies to get scared by Hey, what are you doing? I'm making a video? Oh, I'm doing I'm doing a thing. Like an awards thing? What do you mean you're doing awards? What awards? Like the Oscars or the Grammys or, you know, that kind of thing. You're doing awards. This is a YouTube video. Like an award for each movie. Like I have a couple of awards for Jaws 2, and then there's going to be awards for all the other ones, you know, as we get there. That's also not how awards work. The Oscars don't say, well, let's get everybody from La La Land up here and then tell you what you've won. Like, that doesn't how this one works. That's how this one is going to work. I got dressed up to do it. Can I though? Can I do it? No, it's a fun gimmick. I'm just like afraid that the people are gonna, yay, cool. What I was saying before, we don't go to the movies just to get sad and feel things and examine our lives and question our biases. Sometimes we just go to the movies for a good shark, you know? A good shark, have a good shark. This is just a moment for you to just, okay. All right, sharking around, workshopping some catchphrases. Let me know what you think of them. Let me know what you think, which one works. This is a stupid idea, and it always will be, but go for it. Be my guest. Our first award for Jaws 2 is the best picture of the pictures we're looking at, and that award goes to, I do see the problem now, because there's not really a lot of tension with like what the award is going to, because I already said it. That award goes to Jaws 2. That's our best picture of the pictures we're looking at. Another award that I have to give out that could go to any of these four, could go to any of them, is the shark death closest to the origin of Electro from Spider-Man. And that goes to Jaws 2, believe it or not. Jaws 2. And those are my awards. That was it? Okay, cool. Yeah, great, man. No, that's awesome. I'm really glad. It's a good thing. Please don't do that for the other ones, though. Right? Like, It was a fun one-time gimmick, but we have 2 more movies to get through. And that does bring us to Jaws 3D. Jaws 3, the third Jaws in 3 dimensions. And boy, is it. This is directed by Joe Alves, who has also directed literally nothing else. I couldn't find a single other thing he's directed. He had done some additional photography on Starman, and that was also kind of the only other thing I could find. So not a lot happening, not a lot going on. I assume he did other things in the business and then got a shot at directing Jaws 3D, and well, we'll get to it. It came out in 1983, which is 5 or so years after the last film, which is a longer gap. And it's interesting that it's a longer gap because you can tell that it kind of feels like they made Jaws 2 thinking it was going to be a slam dunk, and then Jaws 3 needed a second to kind of figure out where it wanted to go. Did it use that second? I'm gonna say not at all. This feels like a movie that was written and directed possibly at the same time. Possibly it was directed and then it was written. It's really unclear. This feels like a movie that was shot guerrilla. It feels like a very low budget student film in some moments. The core concept of the film is that there is a sea world where Dennis Quaid, playing I believe it's Sean Brody. He plays the son of Ellen and Martin Brody, and one of 2 sons, actually. The other son is also in this, the younger son, yes, so it had to be Sean. Okay, his younger brother is also working there for the summer. That's not really important. What is important is that a shark gets caught in the SeaWorld on accident. It finds its way in, and that shark dies and then draws in the mother shark, the mama shark, the big shark, huge shark, biggest shark we've ever seen. I don't remember the exact length. I think they said something about 30 feet, which it's like, I don't even think the animatronic was 30 feet long. Anyway, concept being shark is now in a SeaWorld, a functioning SeaWorld where the people are, where humans go. And it's really interesting because that is a concept that sounds so fun. And unlike Jaws 2, where Jaws 2 brought up the idea of the resort but then never actually did anything with it, Jaws 3D, use its Christian name, Jaws 3D, does the thing. It does the thing that it says it's going to do. A shark is in a SeaWorld, a functioning SeaWorld. There are customers, there are people working there. And it should feel like a big wet Jurassic Park, right? Like it should feel scary that there's a shark in this area with all these people, where there's all of these tourists and all these people working, and it should play in that space at all, right? Like it just seems like such a slam dunk to have, like, I don't know, Jaws v Shamu, or like the shark is making its way, like there's a system of tunnels, not tunnels. I guess they're tunnels, but they're glass tunnels. Tubes is the word for that. There's a system of tubes where people can walk around under all the water and see all the fish and the animals and whatever. And it's a very interesting concept. That's kind of the selling point of the thing. And you would really think there would be a bit where the shark gets in the tubes, right? Like that seems like such an obvious thing that you would do. But this movie never does that. This movie doesn't really do anything with the idea of a shark loose in a SeaWorld. It is true that it is happening, but most of it feels like just kind of the ocean or a swimming pool. Like there's never a point where it's helpful that it's a SeaWorld. It also, the general movie plays out a lot like a commercial for SeaWorld, which is so funny to me, because in 2025, looking at it with 2025 current eyes that I have now, my human eyes, it's not a good light for SeaWorld. This doesn't paint SeaWorld in a good light, and I don't mean because they let a shark in. I mean because this really highlights why maybe we shouldn't be doing SeaWorlds at all, because it's very exploitative and kind of unsafe and pretty bad for the animals. And it is very funny to me that it was like, there was no point where it was like, this is Ocean Land, or like they never tried to pretend like it wasn't that. This is like sponsored by SeaWorld. This is a SeaWorld. They use the word Shamu. Like this is a SeaWorld, and it is so funny to me looking at it with a current perspective and just seeing this like kind of horrific nightmare land that they don't think they're presenting at all. Like the scary part of this is supposed to be the shark. Not at all true. Like the scary part of this movie is the SeaWorld, and I think that's very funny. But here's the thing about Jaws 3D. for all the story things that it doesn't get right, for all the character moments that just seem to have disappeared because there is literally no arc for Dennis Quaid's character at all. He's a very charming man. Not in this, but I assume in life. Or maybe not. Maybe he's a terrible guy. I honestly don't know. But I've seen him be charming in other things, and he just has nothing to do here, so he can't really bring anything to it. But for all the story things that are lacking, for all the bits, the shark bits that don't necessarily make a lot of sense, it also looks like dog shit. And there's just no getting around that. Like, the concept of the movie is that it's supposed to be playing with the 3D element, right? That is the whole point of the thing. And the 3D looks bad, like really bad. It is all comped in. It looks like a sticker recreation of a movie. It looks like a child made this movie. Like, the effects are possibly the worst I've ever seen in a like regular movie, in a movie that people made, you know, Hollywood, the boys upstairs. This is a movie made by a system that presumably would have checks and balances that would stop something like this from happening, but it looks horrendous. There's a moment, the big climactic moment of the movie is when the shark, whatever the shark's name is, I guess it doesn't have a name. Most of them don't have, they're not like given names. The shark is attacking the like main head base thing underwater, and it's breaking through glass, and it's supposed to be scary presumably, but it looks like a spoof movie. Like it looks like a fake movie that doesn't exist, that you would watch a clip of in an Apple TV show and be like, it's funny that they pretended like that was a movie that was made. It is legitimately some of the worst I've ever seen. Like, the lighting on the effects is bad, the comping on the effects is bad, and I assume if you saw this in 3D, well, I assume it would also look terrible, but I assume there would be an element of novelty that would make it more fun. But when you're popping this bad boy on Netflix and you don't have 3D glasses and it's not a 3D scan, and you're just left raw dogging Jaws 3D, it is not good. It looks horrendous. And outside of the 3D elements, it also just looks bad as a movie. Shots are out of focus. There's the lighting is some of the worst I've ever seen. The editing is awful. There's speed ramped footage of sharks that does not look good. The shark itself also does not look good, by the way. This is the worst animatronic I think I've ever seen. You can see the metal skeleton underneath the animatronic, which is a very bad sign. And whenever it's moving around, it looks like there's somebody inside it pushing the outer skin to make it look alive. And it does not work. It is not working. The shark effects really are bad. The shark scenes are also bad. They're not well constructed. There's no tension to them. There's just so little about this movie that is redeeming on any level outside of a very, very high level kitschy pastiche feeling that I guess is there. Like, I guess you can watch this movie and enjoy that you have now watched Jaws 3D. And I guess that is true. Like, there are clips of this movie that are funny to watch, like the climactic bit where the shark breaks through the thing and it looks really bad. I suppose there is that. But outside of that, it is a really, really long movie. Like, there's a couple of moments in Jaws 2 that feel slow and feel like we're just waiting for shark attacks. Jaws 3D blows that out of the water. Sorry about the pun. Jaws 3D absolutely destroys that feeling. So much of this movie is just me sitting on my couch begging the movie to do something, begging it to go anywhere, do anything. Give Dennis Quaid an arc, give him a character, give him anything to do outside of just walk around a SeaWorld and look at the stuff. This feels like a live stream of somebody walking through an old SeaWorld, and that is not a compliment, just to be clear. Jaws 3D is a special case of wasting its setting by literally every possible metric. And there is something to be said for an older, lower budget horror movie with an interesting setting isn't always going to be able to do the things that you might want, say, a new 2025 movie to do with that kind of setting. Like, one of my favorite subgenres, and this is kind of an aside, one of my favorite subgenres of film is horror movies set at horror-based theme parks, or theme parks in general where there is horrific things happening. Hellfest, Bloodfest, that kind of thing. And Hellfest is able to do a lot of things because it is able to do a lot more with its budget. It's able to live in the space, and it knows how to kind of enjoy being in that. But there are older movies like a Funhouse that don't necessarily go as far in the setting, but it's okay. They get kind of a pass for that, in the same way that I don't know, Friday the 13th. An earlier Friday the 13th movie isn't expected to be as gory or exciting or crazy as some of the later ones because film just wasn't there yet. Like, there's a contextual element to that. There is no context under which Jaws 3D does anything worthwhile with the idea of a shark at a SeaWorld. It literally doesn't engage with it outside of the bare minimum necessity to let us know that it is a SeaWorld and know that they probably shot it at a SeaWorld. It's such a boring movie, and it makes me so mad because at least Jaws 2 had the audacity to be fun about it. Like Jaws 3 also does not have the small town New England-y kind of vibes, and it doesn't have the fun of a shark movie. It is just a boring, bad movie that's not fun to watch outside of just, I guess, to make fun of it. But I do a podcast with my two best friends. Yes, it's a plug. I do a podcast with my two best friends called the Motion Picture Retribution Power Hour, where we make each other watch bad movies and we talk about them and discuss what didn't work and what did work about those things. And I watched this movie and I legitimately was like, well, there's nothing to talk about, so I can't bring it on the podcast. It's bad enough that it wouldn't be fun to talk about in the podcast. It just looks, feels, and is really bad. But thankfully, it's not the last Jaws. The last Jaws is... Wouldn't you believe it? I'm actually back here for more awards. I thought we weren't gonna do that. I thought we were gonna do this. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do them. I thought we talked about how that wasn't really that funny of a gag and like, it doesn't really work. I'm going to do them. That's how this works. It's also confusing because it's like me. And the award for worst looking shark goes to Jaws 3D. Jaws 3D as the worst looking shark. Ain't that a shame? But ain't that just a kick in the, jaws in the jaws of the pants? One more award, and again, this could go to literally any of the movies that we're talking about today. It could even go to, I don't know, The Meg maybe. There's other shark movies out there. The award is Film with the Most Dimensions, and that does go to Jaws 3D. So, congratulations, Jaws 3D. I will not be giving you a moment to speak because you look like shit. You look like a piece of shit. Back to you, the show. Thank you for that. I appreciate it a lot. That does bring us to Jaws 4 or Jaws the Revenge. Sorry, the light got crazy. If it looks a little different, I'm doing all I can. I really need to get a better studio, but we're working on that. Jaws the Revenge, directed by Joseph Sargent, a person who has made other movies, a person who has made horror movies, and it came out in 1987. The concept of the film, the story goes, Ellen Brody has lost her husband. Martin Brody is dead. He died of a heart attack, or, as we'll learn later, fear of sharks. And at the start of the film, she loses her youngest son, Sean, which I am just now realizing. I'm pretty sure I said that Sean was the oldest son in the last one. This is tough. I don't want to go back and re-record it, and so I'm not going to, but just know that now I know that Sean isn't the oldest son. Sean is the youngest son, who's now dead in this movie, and that's the point. He was a police officer, and at the opening of the film on Christmas Eve, the best part of the film, by the way, the opening of the film on Christmas Eve, Sean Brody, a police officer, goes out to try to move some large piece of wood out of the bay, and he is eaten by a shark while a children's choir is singing. Not there, obviously, like they cut back and forth between the two. Like that would be crazy if the children's choir was just singing and he's just off to the left being eaten by a shark. Anyway, he dies of shark, as one is wont to do in these kinds of movies. And Ellen is really sad about it. She goes through a very, albeit relatively fast grieving process. And this is where she says that the shark is trying to kill her family, trying to get revenge, which it's unclear to me if this shark is supposed to be the shark from the original Jaws or one of the other sequels, or if this is just a shark who is trying to get revenge on the concept of people who have killed sharks before. I really don't know which one it is, but either way, Ellen is going through a severely traumatic experience. She's lost her son, so she goes to live with her other son in the Caribbean, and then the shark shows up to get his revenge. The shark swims from New England to the Caribbean to get his revenge against Ellen Brody. And that's Jaws the Revenge. So there is a version of this movie, because I think that this movie works on a couple of levels. There's a version of this movie where Ellen Brody is really struggling. It's a story about grief, dealing with trauma, dealing with the idea of grief, of losing your son, to this thing that never should have happened, to this thing that has followed you through your whole life. You can't get away from the idea of sharks, even though you could just go live in a landlocked state, but you can't get away from sharks. It's this haunting thing that happens to you. The idea of that as a character arc for Ellen, the idea of trying to figure out how to deal with that and also fight this shark that is now terrorizing your town once again, once and for all, how to stop this and get out of the game. That could be an interesting thing, because Ellen's character has been built up through these movies. In Jaws, she's just kind of wife of cop. In Jaws 2, she's making business deals, being a girl boss. We talked about this. I don't think she's in Jaws 3 at all. I don't think she's in Jaws 3 at all. But we do see her kind of developing. It would be interesting for her to be a large part of the town. She's a key figure in Amity now. And that would be something. If she was important to the town, if she was, say, the mayor, that could be kind of fun. And also, sure, if you want to have it be Jaws the Revenge and a shark is out for revenge, have it be like the brother of one of the sharks that they killed in the last three. I don't care. That part doesn't really matter to me. Like, that I can accept on some level, but the idea that she moves to the Caribbean to be with her other son, and this shark follows her from Amity, is stupid. Like, it's just a stupid movie. It breaks our suspension of disbelief in a way that, like, this is as close as we're ever gonna get to the Jaws sequel where they go to space, right? And that's what horror franchises do. For some reason, 80s horror franchises always do that thing where they have some sort of psychic and then they go to space. Those are the two things that they just kind of have to do. And I guess this is the psychic one, because she does have a psychic connection with this shark, because she can sense whenever it's trying to kill somebody or whenever it takes a life. There's a version of this where that would be more fun if they went further with it, and that's the other side. If you want to go grief, you can do that, but if you want to go crazy, zany, insane shark movie where she does have like a psychic connection, or they go to space, or you do some sort of horror sequel dumb thing that they always do, that's another option if you literally jump the shark. But Jaws 4 is torn between both concepts. It's torn between trying to be both movies, and it ends up being kind of neither of them. I will say, obviously, Lorraine Gary is doing a good job. She's very good in these movies, and I think that she is bringing it when it comes to the grief, when it comes to the hardship of losing your son, and also your husband to shark fear. There are other characters in this movie, and they are also there, and they are also doing things. But really, this is her movie. This is Ellen Brody's film. And you can tell because a lot of the runtime is spent with her just sort of island vibing with Michael Caine as Hoagie, a guy named Hoagie. There is a large chunk of this film that is just them going on a big island date all the time and smooching, and it's very cute, and they have little outfits, and it's a lot of fun. It's a solidly romantic movie for what it is, and I think that element of the movie is kind of fun to watch, honestly. The shark bits, the shark is done fine. The animatronic is honestly pretty solid. It does roar like a lion toward the end of the movie. That doesn't matter. Don't worry about that. Honestly, like, who even cares? The shark is solid. There's not a lot of good shark action in this, but there's a couple of decent moments. There's a bit where her son is like exploring this boat. I think it's a boat. Anyway, he's underwater and the shark is like trying to attack him through it. And that's a pretty solid sequence. Overall though, the movie's just a little boring. It doesn't really play, and it is stuck between those two worlds of trying to be serious and trying to be zany. And you can't do both. You can't have it both ways. I would say overall, Jaws the Revenge is a solid franchise horror sequel. The problem is none of these movies are horror movies. So it just acts like we've always been like afraid of the shark. And I guess Jaws 1 is a horror movie in a sense, but it's not like a traditional horror movie. This treats it like Jaws has been a slasher franchise, and now we're doing the Island one. And that doesn't work when the movies haven't been scary up to this point. That really doesn't work when the last one was this weird kind of almost spoofy, never does anything quite seriously enough sort of movie. This is also that. This also feels like it's not taking itself seriously at all, and also taking itself 100% seriously. This feels like a battle of creative ideas. Jaws: The Revenge it's not good, right? Like, these are not good. These are not. And the award for best. We talked about not doing this. No, I know. But I want to do one more. You've let me do all the other ones. Just please let me do. I've got funny ones. Dude, I already talked about Hoagie. If this is gonna be about Hoagie, there's not even but it's such a funny name. Just let me do this. Let me do the award. Fine. You want to do this? You can do this. I don't even care. I don't give a shit. Just do it. Just do the awards. Do the whole thing. It doesn't even matter. Yay! The award for Best Hoagie. And again, just a reminder, could go to any of them. Best Hoagie goes to Jaws: The Revenge, the only one with a guy named Hoagie. Really just wanted to point out one more time that Michael Caine's character's name is Hoagie in this. And our final award for the evening, what you might call the best picture, outside of the one that I did call best picture, Hungiest Boy. The award for Hungiest Boy goes to... Started to lose it toward the end there. Jaws: The Revenge has the world's hungiest boy. He eats a boat and a plane and a submarine and some boys. I think we should do a ranking. I think I'm gonna do a ranking, and I'll just knock it out really quick. So my ranking for the Jaws sequels. Oh, can I do the ranking too? I want to do the ranking. Sure, you can do the ranking. My ranking of the Jaws films is gonna be slightly different from John, the other John making the video. My ranking of the Jaws films goes Jaws, obviously, the greatest movie in the Jaws franchise. The greatest movie maybe ever outside of Jurassic Park. And then I'm going to go Jaws 2, and then I'm going to go Jaws 4, The Revenge, and then Jaws 3D because it is clearly the worst one. And I'm just now thinking about it, and it probably is also, just based on the way he was talking about it, probably is the way that he would rank those. Great, yeah, thanks for that. No, I really appreciate your input. So at the end of the day, as we're staring down the barrel of the 50th anniversary of Jaws, what is our takeaway from the sequels? I have now seen all of them, and now you've either seen them or heard me talk about them for a very long time. So what's our takeaway? There shouldn't have been sequels to Jaws. Honestly, that's pretty much like it boils down to that. The idea of Jaws is so good because it is novel, because it is a small town dealing with a thing they've never dealt before. Jaws 2 and 3 and 4 are just more sharks. They're shark movies more than they are Jaws movies, and they're not very good shark movies either. I do think it's interesting that after Jaws: The Revenge, we've kind of realized that maybe we should just do other shark movies because this isn't really happening. And so we haven't gotten a Jaws movie since 1987, which is honestly, in this day and age, kind of shocking. The fact that we have the new Halloween trilogy and not another Jaws movie is kind of wild. And I honestly think it's because they just have finally realized that doing another Jaws movie is not going to be more profitable than doing a different shark movie that is equally good. Not than Jaws, but equally good as what you were going to make, just to be clear. I feel like each Jaws sequel highlights in a specific and different way why we shouldn't have done a sequel to Jaws. Jaws 2 really solidly highlights what makes the original so good, what makes it so tense and interesting and thrilling, and also isn't good at doing that. And then Jaws 3 shows us that even if you theme parkify, even if you make it a fun, crazy, zany, location change kind of movie, it still doesn't work. And Jaws 4 shows us that even if you try to bring it back to some emotional heart, there just isn't a way to do that. There is no story left to be told from the Jaws universe. We've told all the Jaws story that there is to tell in the first Jaws movie. It is a comprehensive, solid, wonderful, dare I say, nearly perfect film, and every time we try to come for the crown, we fall on our ass so hard that you don't do another one for another 3 years or ever again. I will say, I did have a really fun time looking at the Jaws movies, not because they're good, but because they're very interesting from a film perspective. They're very unique. I am glad that none of these were corporatized. I'm glad that all of them were genuinely insane sequels. Like, if we were to get a sequel to Jaws at this point now today, it would be like a Disney Plus original, and I just don't see the point in doing that. It would feel like a corporate product. I like that Jaws 2, 3, and 4 all feel like artists trying to make something. They're just bad at doing it. But I'd rather have things that are crazy and bad than boring and fine. So those are my thoughts on the Jaws sequels. I really appreciate you hanging out with me for this long. I wanted to do some kind of gag where I was scratching a chalkboard, but A, that sound makes me want to tear my eardrums clean out my body, and B, I don't have a chalkboard, so, and C, I couldn't think of a way to make it work. And D, I don't think it would be very funny. So thank you for watching this. It really does mean a lot to me, and I would love to hear your thoughts on the Jaws sequels. Thank you so much for watching this video and checking out my channel. If you'd like to hear more of my thoughts on movies, comics, TV shows, anything of the like, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe, and comment down below what you'd like me to review next, or do none of those things because I am not your dad. I'll be honest, and this is gonna go at the end of the video probably, I'll be honest, I don't know if this bit is working. I'm filming it now, and I don't know if it's gonna make it.